Welcome to Solo Sailing with Trev White. Today I was going to talk about exploring the Vavau Island Group and Neiafu, which is the main town. So we're basically anchored off the Kraken pub, literally 80 metres away on a mooring. Good location, pretty safe, lots of boats around, like there's a whole arc rally in town. So every square inch is taken with a boat or a small ship or a super yacht, and the whole bay, quite a large bay, is there must be 100 boats in 100 yachts and super yachts. So the Kraken was pretty much the happening place to be. Luckily, it was my local, and we're pretty close to town also, so it was a good location to provision, get fuel, go to the pub, get back from the pub, and also allowed the crew to use a second dinghy just to row in and row out. It was pretty close. A lot of boats were sort of travelling probably almost half a mile to go to the pub because they were anchored so far down. We just happened to fluke a mooring very close. So the I guess what we mainly focused on in Neiafu was just provisioning, chilling out, going to the pub, getting some just decent meals at the restaurant, having a bit of a look around. Justine and Pierre went investigated whale or swimming with the whales, which is something they really wanted to do, and very difficult to do off a yacht. When we were sailing up through the middle kingdom there, up near Pangai, we had some whales with us, but they weren't hanging around. These whales were on a mission. It's quite unsafe to, in my opinion, to try and swim off a yacht with whales that are not interested in you. And in some places you go, the whales will hang around, like Hervey Bay. If a whale gets interested in a boat, they'll hang around. You could hop in the water, go for a swim. But humpbacks are typically on a mission. They're going somewhere. So the people running the whale watching swimming, they tend to use smaller boats, more manoeuvrable, closer to the whales. Yachts are not terribly manoeuvrable, not terribly quick either. So whales often will outrun us quite readily. So they went off looking for that. I was looking for gas and sorting out LPG gas resupplies, checking out the veggie markets, seeing what provisions we needed to take for the next part of our trip. And just having some beers at the local pub, just chilling out, some Italian food. It's a nice little place there. Just chilling, reading a book and having a coffee in some of the cafes. It's a nice little town, pretty easy going. Also just doing some maintenance on the boat. It's been sailing for a few weeks now, so I was catching up on maintenance. The one thing again which became a problem is water. So I needed to resupply water before heading off to Fiji. The way my water maker is, it prefers to be in calm waters when I'm making water as opposed to sailing. And the weather looked like it was going to be a bit lumpy, so made it a bit more challenging for me to make water in rough conditions. So the other thing I wanted to do is I also wanted to explore some of the Vavau Group anchorages, go diving, and get away from the main town. Like the main town was just so busy with people. So in the end, Justine and Pierre decided they wanted to stay in town, go whale watch diving or swimming, and Esther and I decided to go down to a anchorage about 10, 12 miles away, and they're going to make water, top up the tanks, do a bit of diving, exploring, come back on Monday morning, pick up Pierre and Justine, and then we'd push on to Savuavu in Fiji, which has now become the destination. And there's also a bit of tension. I think one of the things with having couples on boards, they're a bit cliquey. I mean, they're into each other because they live with each other. And I've found this with couples on numerous occasions when you become your own little entity. I find it probably easier sometimes to sail with single people because they're just all new to the scene, whereas couples couple up and they've got their own quirks and they think that the world should revolve around them. And that's how I find sailing with couples. So not all, but a few that I have sailed with. So they left the boat and went and found an Airbnb for the weekend, and Esther and I sailed down to the southern part of the Vavau Group, which is south of, we went around Kappa Island and we went back up to Mungue, which is a beautiful little bay. We had this really blustery 30-knot easterly coming in, which was terrible. But once we got into this little bay, it was dead wind, very high cliffs, probably 80-foot cliffs all around the bay, anchored in 10 metres of water. Water wasn't great, but and the holding was a bit challenging, but it took about 5 times to get the anchor down and get stuck. There's about 4 boats in there, so we had a bit of swing room between us. So one of the priorities was just to get the water maker running, and I make about 100 litres an hour. So started making water, and because it was overcast and a bit crappy, it wasn't terribly warm, but went off diving, and so Esther and I went exploring in the dinghy and went snorkeling around the whole bay area trying to find some decent coral. And as that turns out, it was a bit disappointing. Like the coral had been impacted by something, not quite sure what was going on, but it wasn't great. And we'd seen some dive buoys on the sail down in places where I couldn't take a yacht. It was just too exposed. But obviously there's some deeper walls where dive companies have been taking people diving, and I think they're just diving on walls. So the corals and the conditions are probably better on those deeper walls, but the shallower areas where you can snorkel and free dive and spearfish, they all tend to be damaged maybe by the tsunami, but could be also by humanity. So we just chilled out there for a couple of days, primarily just producing lots of water. Filled the tanks, filled up all the spare bottles, probably got about 500 litres all up. And then Sunday night we up anchored and motor sailed back to the main town. So again, it's 10 nautical miles, about an hour and a half, 2 hour trip. Conditions had improved, so it wasn't so bad going back, but it had been terrible coming down. And we got in, went to the pub, sort of just anchored out from the pub, went to the pub. So I was just chatting to people in the pub and found out there's this big ass storm coming. So we weren't sure where we were going to leave on Monday or give it a couple of days, but pretty much that evening went back to the boat, sat down with Esther, pulled out all the laptops and tablets, looking at different weather systems, software, and established that it wasn't the best place to be in a big blow, and there looked like a 40 or 50 knot storm coming across from Fiji was going to hit pretty much straight into the island that we're at and probably hit around the harbour, and I didn't want to be in a harbour where there was like 150 boats. Someone was going to drag and cause problems. Could have even been me. So I made a decision that we were going to leave Monday morning. We'll pick up Justine and Pierre, and we would then push on and head to Savuavu. So it's about 450 miles across to Savuavu, or maybe 400 or 350, depending on which way you went. But with the conditions that were coming across, I had made a plan to go to the north. I was going to go 200 miles to the north of a rum line across to Savuavu, which is a direct line. So I'd go north, and the plan was basically to head up in the vicinity of Wallace and Futuna, which is a French island. There's 2 little islands, and potentially stop at one of those islands. So that was a thought. If the weather system was so bad, we'd just keep sailing north. We'd bounce into Wallace and Futuna. We'd spend a few days up there exploring, and then we'd come down to Savuavu. Not unreasonable, it's a decent idea just to avoid a storm. And I'm used to sailing around storms. I'd rather be moving on the open ocean than hanging around in a harbour waiting to get beaten up. So we ended up talking to some of my friends in the pub and said, well, that's our plan. We are made a decision, we're going to go. And Esther was keen to go. And she was keen to learn about being a skipper, which is good. And looked at all the navigation. I pointed out all the issues with the weather, with the anchorage that we're in, and it made sense to her that it was the right choice. I was going to leave anyway, but and I don't make anybody go on a passage they're not comfortable. Anybody can leave the boat at any time. So that decision was made. We had plenty of provisions on board, and we enough water, fuel. And early in the morning, I went over, picked up Justine and Pierre. They were at the dock. Came back to the boat, gave them a heads up on the plan, which we were planning to leave anyway. And they'd been at the pub the night before or somewhere and been talking to some other people. They were scared of going out to sea in a storm, and we'd already been having a bit of tension. But said, this is my plan. So I went across to the Customs wharf, which wasn't terribly comfortable. It was a bit rolly. Managed to tie up alongside. It's got to be the worst Customs wharf around. Terrible for small boats, but we managed to get enough fenders out so we weren't getting damaged. And as we were sorting all that out, Justine decided that they weren't going to leave. They were going to stay in Tonga. So Mutiny on Tintin didn't particularly worry me. I'm glad they did that before I sorted customs. So I had no problems. They started unloading their bags and grabbed everybody's passports, Pierre and Justine, and we went across to the customs ladies, explained the situation. These guys were going to stay. Oh, sorry, before that I'd already sat down with Esther and said, do you want to keep going? Or do you want to stay? Either way, I was leaving. So but she was happy enough to sail on. She felt comfortable that we made the right choice. So we went through the process of customs, and then there was a bit of rigmarole with getting extensions for Justine and Pierre to stay there. They had to go and visit a couple other immigration to sort that out. And then we went back to the boat, bid au revoir, and we reversed off the wharf and started heading out to sea. So that was the end of the Pierre and Justine couple on the boat. So it was just Esther and I at that stage. The weather conditions weren't really that bad at this stage. We had probably maybe 15 to 20 knots. It was a little bit lumpy, but it wasn't too bad. So we just motored down the channel, waved goodbye to a few of our friends as we passed, and probably about 3 or 4 miles down, and then you take a turn to starboard, and you're basically out in the open ocean. So the plan was just to head to the northwest, and a bit of a dogleg around or across to Savuavu. And if the weather deteriorated, we were going to push up to Wallace and Futuna. So one of the issues for me was my girlfriend was flying into Savuavu in 2 weeks' time, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to sort out the boat. Esther was going to be leaving the boat and heading back to New Zealand. So we sort of had to debate whether we would go to Wallace Futuna. We had enough time, but not a huge amount of time. And we decided if we get to Savuavu, there was time to go exploring, do a bit of diving, have a look around. We continued on, and weather was pretty good the first day and a half. It was rolly, but it wasn't terribly blowy. And then it started to pick up. So we had a southeasterly blow coming through, and it built up to probably about 35 knots, maybe 40. But it was primarily coming from behind us, and that was easy. We just pulled down the main and the mizzen, rigged up what do we have? We have the storm sail on one side, off the end of the boom, and a jib on a pole. So goose winged configuration. So it was a little rolly for Tintin, but at the same time it was a very easy configuration. very easy to manage. You can keep rolling in the jib if you need to shorten sail. Already have a storm jib up, and the autopilot was doing it without any problems at all. And we were averaging probably 6 or 7 knots. So apart from being rolling, and what was really interesting was Esther, who had been terribly seasick on the trip from New Zealand, wasn't seasick at all. Didn't take any seasick medication that I can recall. Yeah, was fine. Like, she was still not keen on cooking, but I don't think she was ever keen on cooking. So as long as I didn't put her down in the galley, she was really comfortable. Looked good. Was super interested in the navigation, so I pretty much put her in charge of navigation for the trip and sail plans, sail configurations, and it's just like a exercise so that she would think about it, and then we'd talk through it and then make a decision, and maintaining the logbooks, etc. So it was good exercise, like Skipper 101. I think she's going to go and do a Yachtmaster course or something to that effect. So these are just good sea miles as well. So we had 450 miles to cover, and we pretty much had rough conditions most of the trip. At the end of the trip, we got to, I think, within about 80 miles of Futuna, so pretty close up that way. And then that weather system passed, and it was blowing its arse off below us. So if we had picked a rum line, we would have been out in 50 or 60 knots. Coming from the other direction, would have been coming from the west. So we picked the right choice, in my opinion, and we weren't sitting around the harbour hiding from a storm. We just picked a route where we could go around the storm and continue on our journey. I think it was about 3 days to get across, and then we just started heading down to the southwest and making a course for a little island called Tavuavu. And by then the weather had pretty much blown out. We had glorious weather. It was calm, 10 knot breeze. We're just running the Genoa, full main, and just cruising along. We weren't, but it was really nice, and it was light winds, so it was just easy sailing. So we just cruised down the eastern side of Tavuavu, and there wasn't too many dangers to worry about there. You could go down there at night and not have to worry so much. No tides to consider, or at least not many. So we sailed down there. We rounded up around the bottom of Vuna Reef, probably at about 1 in the morning or something like that, and a really cruisy sail, probably more motor sail than sail, across to Savuavu Bay. We got across to Point Passage. I think we were over there about, when were we there? Might have been about midday, I think, when we got there, because we'd pretty much lost the wind by then. But it was glorious. It was, it was so flat you could have water skied out there, and so that was just beautiful. Only downside was we were coming in on a Sunday, and we were going to have to clear customs on a Sunday. But thoughts were we would just slow down a bit. We'd get in the afternoon, and then we'd clear customs on the Monday. So I didn't expect customs to work on the Sunday afternoon. So we just headed up into Savuavu Township. We got up there at probably 4 in the afternoon, just motoring up. Picked up a mooring and informed come in, and we would be waiting there till tomorrow morning for customs. That was the mistake. I didn't expect customs to work, and 2 hours later, customs turned up. And what I didn't realise is customs will pay incentives or weekend bonuses to work on the weekends, so they're keen as to work on the weekends. And but it probably cost me $400 extra to clear in on the weekend than what it would have if I had cleared on the Monday. So I would have been better off anchoring, not that you can do this legally, but anchoring down near one of the resorts, or even just on the coast, or even just motoring around in circles and coming in the following morning. And there's plenty of places you could have just dropped the pick outside of the Savuavu River. I would never go into that river at night. It's unless you've been doing it regularly. There's lots of little dangers. There's lots of boats in there. It's quite narrow in spots. So I wouldn't come in there at night unless you were very familiar with it and you had crew with spotlights. It's a good place to also, get into trouble. But coming in the day, very easy. But so we were sitting on the boat having a couple of beers. Again, the weather was just spectacular. It was hot as hell, to be honest, after getting into the anchorage. Probably the hottest it had been the whole time on this trip. And customs turned up, and proceeded to process our customs requirements. And I think we had 5 different people. So we had immigration, customs, Aquis or something to that. There was health and hygiene. There was a number of different people come on the boat and left the boat. But $550 later, they'd cleared off, and it was about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And the couple of beers I'd had really made clearing customs a challenge. So, tip for myself is don't start drinking beer until at least 8 o'clock at night, and you make sure customs are not going to turn up. So we, after that, we were pretty much exhausted, just chilled out. And in the morning, I had to then go around and find all these people and pay the bills. So get some money, and you've got to go to the hospital, which is 5 k's from the marina. You've got to go to the immigration. You've got to go to customs. You've got to basically walk around town finding all these buildings, which is not that hard. But when you've just arrived, it's a bit challenging. And getting to the hospital, requires a cab. It's a good 5 kilometres. I mean, I decided to walk because I hadn't had a decent walk. That was a mistake. By the time I got there, I was suffering, and ended up just catching a cab back. But I think it was only it's only $50 or something. The health, but yeah, Savuavu is a great little spot. It's very popular with cruisers. There's 2 marinas and there's 2 mooring fields, 3 mooring fields, and a marina. If you go in there now, there's like a world-class marina being built, and it has probably at least 50 berths. It's quite nice. And then there's 2 mooring fields with little private jetties, and we chose the first one. And super friendly people, really, really friendly. Keeping a good eye on your dinghy. I felt quite safe there. They keep an eye on the boats travelling around, make sure no one's interfering with your boat. And generally, Fijians are super friendly people. You get the odd bad apple, but they're very, very rare. So the location we're at was pretty close to the pub. It was opposite another pub, and everything's within walking distance. So we weren't right in the middle of the town where some of the mooring fields are. We were sort of on the edge, which also meant that we got a better breeze, which I thought was beneficial. And we weren't in the marina. So the marina, I don't like being in marinas because you're not orientating to the wind when it comes through. You're just stuck in a marina, and you don't really get a decent breeze. It's okay if you've got air conditioning, but my air conditioning had packed it in, so I wanted to try and get as much breeze as I could through the boat. And all we really did was, went and had breakfast the next morning, and then had a look around town. Esther cut away and did her stuff for a while. I cut away and did my stuff, went and had a few beers. Had a look around at spare parts places for little bits and pieces that I needed to get, and just decided to sort of chill there for about a week, waiting for my girlfriend to come in. And Esther was looking at flights to get back to New Zealand, or even jumping on another boat. So in the end, she secured a berth on Little Fish, which was the boat we'd been sailing with. And she'd sailed with them a few days later, after our arrival, to down to Noosa, which was good because they went down a different route, explored a bit, had a few guys on board, good fun, good bunch, and so they got to have a bit of a look around at different places, and I just got to focus on doing some maintenance, setting up the boat, and just getting ready for Rianne to arrive. It was a shame the way it ended with a French couple, but that's sailing. You have differences of opinion. Personalities on a boat become a little bit challenged at times because you're in such close confines. And I do find the whole, it can be difficult. Like I've sailed with quite a few couples now, and they all, they're obviously a couple for a reason, and they tend to become their own centre of gravity, and everybody else around them has to try and work with them. But the reality is, when it's my boat, I'm the skipper, they have to work with me, and they don't always like it. They think they can, push their own. Couples generally think they can push their own opinions and agendas, and that doesn't fly. So we parted ways, and I'm sure they're off exploring the world and maybe even doing some more. But that was a trip from the Vavau group in Tonga across to Savuavu, and strongly recommend Savuavu. It's a great place, and we'll talk a bit more about Savuavu and Taveuni. Did lots of diving, so I'll talk about in the next podcast.